my Wi-Fi.
It's been going pretty strong so far.
Dude, we're live, boys.
Let's
So
go.
the mic is hot. So today
Let's
we got a
go.
couple extra people on. I'm sure everyone is. Gino just flew to Europe, so he's actually sleeping right now, like the princess he is. And I'm actually out here in the woods camping. So we got
Hey.
all the boys on here to drop some knowledge about lead management today. Um, so Gunnar, if you want to just open up with who you are, where you're from, how you got
Yeah.
involved with us.
Yeah. So my name's Gunnar. I'm 21. I got into real estate I'd say it's about 7 months ago, I believe. And I'm from Covington originally. Just moved up to Athens, the Athens area. And yeah, I found Gino on TikTok actually, and DM'd him back in 2020 because I wanted to get into wholesaling. I saw a bunch of stuff about it on TikTok, and then yeah, just started following him from there. And then September of 2021, um, I had just lost my job in construction, and so I was kind of struggling. Didn't really know what I was gonna do. I had COVID. My boss got COVID, so I was out for 2 weeks. Basically, had like no money, and saw Gino posted he was hiring for a lead manager. And at the time, I didn't know what a lead manager was, so I thought it was like a legit manager position. And so I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it anyway. So I split up and went through the whole interviewing process, and 7 months later, here we are.
There we are. There we are.
There
So
we are, baby.
I like that. So Gunnar, can you give me a little like so what was your when you came in, like what even made you want to sign up with us and like sign up, I mean like start working with us? Like what even attracted you to the opportunity?
So I followed Gino in January, and just watching him like progress and watching, the whole company grow just from like a social media standpoint. Um, it interests me into joining the team, like being a part of you guys, and you guys got something special. So I knew I wanted to be a part of it eventually.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a good thing right there is for people listening too is like if you're trying to attract good talent, like you also got to be someone who would be worthy of following, and being involved with. Not that Gunners like are sheep
Right.
or anything, but you wouldn't have
No, but
gotten
like
and you
right,
wouldn't have
but
joined
like
up if we were like some bums.
all throughout summer. So like I was doing construction all throughout summer, and I had known about wholesaling and all of that. And I was even so my boss that I worked with in construction, he did stuff with like real estate agents and stuff like that. So he knew about real estate and everything. So I asked him about wholesaling, and I was like, oh, why don't we start a business and all of that? But like we never really went for it. But like as we were driving, I was just like looking at houses and everything. So like I always knew I wanted to do something in real estate. And then I actually had an agent reach out to me, and he was like, "Have you ever thought about becoming a licensed agent?" And I was like, "No, not really." Started asking about wholesaling, and he was like, "Oh, I don't dabble with that." But I went through the whole process because he made it seem like it was such a great thing to become an agent. So I went through the whole process, paid for the course, got all the way up to getting my license, and then I hit you guys up. So I started working for you and never even took the test.
I remember we talked about that, and you're like, "Does this even mean anything?" I was like, "No," but yeah. So that's pretty sweet. So also, real quick, we're gonna go through Ryan and Jordan's story too, how they found us. And the reason why this is important for everyone listening, right, is because you're probably looking for a lead manager or someone who's got some good talent to bring onto your team as well. And right, and these three guys are all crushing the game. And I would put them up against anyone in the industry as far as how good they are on the phones and doing the lead management position. Like these guys make it so easy to close deals because they just lay them up. Like it's like a easy alley oop, right? So
Hey,
Ryan, how'd
appreciate
you get
that.
involved too?
Yeah, so I have a pretty interesting story myself in terms of how I got started here. But the short version of the story was that I actually launched a wholesaling operation myself effectively last summer. Was doing a lot of educating prior to that, just figuring out how to get deals, how to close deals, and everything in between. And just through kind of being a part of that, social media wholesaling algorithm, I came across, I can't remember if it was Gino or Chandler at first, started following you guys, and y'all were two of the people that I looked up to the most because I saw a couple of dudes roughly my age that were absolutely crushing it, and that's what gave me hope. That this industry is legit, and it can be extremely lucrative. So establish a relationship with you guys when I was still full steam in my own business, and just after going for a few months longer, things weren't really starting to go my way. I broke ways with a guy that I was working with, and basically was just looking to be a part of something a little bit bigger, something a little bit more established, while I was still learning the ropes and figuring everything out. One of the things that I learned about myself is that, I really like to surround myself with people like me, who have the same mindset in terms of, their goals, just being very goal oriented and always kind of thinking about their future, which was something that was absent. Before I joined you guys, I was a one-man show, operating completely independently. And I don't think y'all have this business anymore, but I actually used y'all's Premier Lead Gen service for a while as my cold calling team. And just got to a point again where, I was looking for something a little bit bigger, a little bit more established, wanted to surround myself with the right people, and just reached out to Chandler and Gino. And I just said, hey guys, would love to, I don't know if you guys are hiring or whatever, but, I think I could add a lot of value to y'all's team. If y'all ever, want to bring somebody on, let me know. And, got right back to me, filled out the job application, did the interviews, and here we are. Just wrapped up my 4th month with the business, and so far, man, it's going great. Really enjoying it. Absolutely love this team, and super excited, for our future.
Yeah, it's actually funny you bring that up. I remember when we talked on the phone, I was actually driving to the airport, and my buddy had, this story doesn't add any value to anything, but it's just kind of comical. So we just got back from like a trip to the beach or something, and my buddy had parked my car in the airport parking where it was like $16 a day or like $25 a day. So I think we were talking, and I had to pay like $500 to get my car out of the short-term parking. And I was like, bro, like really? I think I actually told you about it if I'm not wrong. But anyways, yeah. But I remember we were, I remember we were boys right off the bat. So I'm glad you hit us up. So
for sure.
But Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, so kind of touched on this a little bit on the last podcast I was on. So basically I had found Gino basically on an airplane randomly. Long story short, both of our girlfriends had known, both went to the same sorority, same college, knew, a lot of the same mutual people. And kind of from there, I remember Melanie was telling my girl kind of what he did, and I'd never heard anything about wholesaling. Wasn't really that familiar with anything in real estate besides, the traditional realtor route and things like that. So I remember she had told me about wholesaling, that he had his own business and was doing well. And, I go back to Orlando, was just kind of browsing on YouTube, and I had ran into, I think it's like Tony the Closer, one of his YouTube videos. And he was saying about wholesaling, how you can start without any credit, any money or anything like that. So that attracted to me. And that's something, I found, that I wanted to do myself. And long story short, I had reached out to Gino that night, and it was like, hey, I just kind of found out a little bit more about wholesaling. I want to know a little bit more about it. And I was in Orlando at the time, finishing up my graduate year at UCF. And was passing through Orlando, and we had grabbed dinner, and we just started chopping it up. Was kind of started to do my own wholesaling. Wasn't too successful with it, and saw he had an opening, and we established a good relationship just from the jump, and just kind of where it landed me now. I think I'm about 10 months into the company. 10 months, been with you all, and it's been a great experience. Great culture. I've always been in a team atmosphere, so this is kind of where I thrive, and it's been great.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's the craziest story is that you guys met randomly on an airplane.
Yeah.
Like, what insane kind of world do we
God's
live in?
plan right there, man. I'll
That's
tell you
right.
that.
That's right. But another big thing too is like if you're looking for the right person, like, and we're doing this right now, dude, like everyone I talk to, I tell them like who I'm looking for, who we're looking to hire. And then you start to get high quality referrals and leads that come in. So sure, we got lucky with, Jordan and like, Ryan finding us and Gunnar finding us on social media, but we talked about it and people saw it and people were able to go and see, oh, well, this is something I could get involved in. Right. And you got to give them an opening to actually get involved in it. And it's, once you put it out there in the world, it's going to happen. So it's one of the small things that you can do. But yeah, so Jordan, when you joined, you were like you were the first American lead manager we ever hired. We had nothing but VAs before that. So like,
Yeah,
how's the transition been from having a team full of guys in South America to now we have a team full of people stateside?
Yeah, and I remember when, first starting off, I think it was like Eric, Harry, and Jesse.
Yeah.
Good stories there, but no, it was. I mean, they eventually end up taking, doing different positions within the company or just no longer being with the company. And I had great success just coming in right away. Was trained up by Gino and Jared at the time, and they really gave me everything I needed to know to go out there and really, crush the game. And, after, a couple months and, we're able to get more American lead managers just from, like Chandler was saying, referrals and things like that. And, it's been really good. We built a great team of lead managers now. And, it's just been, it's something we're continuing to, still grow. So.
Yeah. And real quick, before we really get into it, because I forgot we even hit on this, is like, what even is a lead manager? I mean, anyone can.
I can.
You
go ahead,
go
Gunnar.
I'll say it.
So basically, we have our marketing sources and everything, and so the lead comes into the CRM, and our job is basically to call the lead and either qualify or disqualify them. So basically, what makes a lead qualified is if they have motivation and discounted price. Then it gets pushed further down the line to the acquisitions manager. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do. And if we disqualify the lead, it goes to a follow up, and we follow up with them a couple months down the road.
Gotcha. And by pushing on to an acquisition manager, are you like setting an appointment, or are you just like giving it to them? Like, how does that handoff work?
Right. So if the lead that comes into the CRM is the motivated seller, they have a discounted price. We push that to the acquisition manager as an appointment, and they ultimately get the contract.
Gotcha. Okay, so cool. So you're setting up an appointment for them to give them an offer and go. Okay, I like that.
Yes, sir.
So, and again, I know I'm just asking you guys questions, but I want you guys to answer them. But, so what do you think is the most important part? Because like you're prepping these people to get an offer to sell their house. So like, what's the couple of the biggest keys you feel like that separate a good lead manager and like a really good lead manager?
I'm going to hop in on this one. I think the biggest thing for us is establishing credibility and rapport as quickly as possible. I mean, it honestly took me a while to even think about this on a serious level. A long time after I got started within the industry, is like when you're calling somebody who has no idea who you are and no idea who your company is, and you're asking them if they'll sell you their house over the phone. In principle, like that's a pretty crazy concept. So I would say the most important thing that you have to do from the beginning is establish credibility and rapport. One of our biggest points is setting expectations from the beginning, letting them know this is how we work, this is what it looks like to work with us, this is how these calls go, this is what our company does, this is where we're based, this is how many properties we're buying a month. We can provide links to our website to again prove to these people that we are a legitimate, credible company that knows what we're doing. So ultimately though, I would say the most important part of our job is, getting the seller's guard down, getting out of that spam territory. Again, we're somebody who cold called them essentially out of the blue saying, hey, can I make you a cash offer for your house? It's like, hold up, like, who are you? Like, so
Right.
that's what's most important to me for sure.
Yeah, no, he definitely took the. Brian said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I preach to them all the time. It's like, these are we're everything. We're I mean, we're a virtual wholesaling business, so to really build that credibility and have people really trust in what we're doing and deliver on our word is our main focal point of, I think if a lead manager can build that confidence and trust in the seller over the phone, then that's going to make them a really successful lead manager within this in this business. So
I completely agree. So do you think like the expectations and letting them know how we work, that just kind of establishes that credibility that we're like a true company? Are there anything else? Is there anything else besides obviously extending websites and that kind of stuff that you feel like really like add into that, like being intentional about something else or anything else, or do you feel like those are the biggest points for credibility?
um, I'll jump in, but I think really, I mean, having the script. I mean, Gino is a master at doing it. So I mean, all the sales training that he instilled in us in terms of how the script is laid out, how how we price anchor, how we do this and that, where you know we're able to get a lot of these people don't have asking prices or whatever the case may be. But I think our job, as lead manager and what our script has proved is getting as much information. That way we can, set the home buying specialists, acquisitions up for success. So, really having good sales training is key.
For sure, for sure. Jock asked if Jordan could come and train his team.
My guy, Jock, man. Throw me
Jock's
a little
Jock's
fee out, might help you out.
That's right there, getting my man paid. So, what once you kind of establish credibility, what does the rest of the conversation look like with these sellers?
Ultimately what Ryan said, just building rapport. And, we go through the script, we ask, condition of the property. From there, we see if they live in the property, they have tenants in place. And then from that point, we have to see if there's any other decision makers on the sell of the property. And then, get into motivation, see why they're looking to sell, and then get their price out of them and see if they're ready to make that decision today.
Gotcha. And so you have the conversation with the seller, obviously through a lot of rapport, and if they meet the the criteria for an appointment, what exactly you hit the appointment criteria a little bit earlier. Can you re-clarify what that is for us to set an appointment for the acquisition rep to give an offer?
So basically it's so our biggest thing is motivation. If the seller has motivation to sell, that's the number one indicator to push it to the acquisitions manager. But another big thing is a discounted price. So you want to make sure it's a discounted price because you don't want to push a property that's worth 300,000. They're asking 400,000 for their property to an acquisitions manager. That just wouldn't be smart. But yeah, just make sure it's a discounted price. Make sure they have motivation and they're ready to make that yes or no decision.
Yeah. Is there like any criteria on a discounted price, or is it just like market value or below? Like, how do you guys look at that?
So we run comps and make sure that comps in the area support, our kind of like we throw out an anchor offer, kind of like what Jordan said. So we'll throw out an anchor that's like super, super below.
Could you give an example of the anchor offer after this? Just keep going though.
What do you mean?
Like do it, like role play it. Yeah, like role play it.
You gonna hop on a live role play?
Let's do it.
Got to. But yeah, so basically, we can just jump right into that. If a seller's asking, Zillow value is 300,000, and they want, I wouldn't go lower than 250. We'll throw out an anchor offer of like 120 to 150, and it's way too low. They're gonna say no, but then it'll set, oh well, I wouldn't take anything less than 200, and then that's how their bottom line's 200, and then from there you can push that to the acquisition.
Yeah, for sure.
To go on that, I would say, main thing, you got to know how much you're wanting to make per deal, and I think we established that if if it's not this discounted, then it's probably not worth our time, especially listening on the market, all those fees, closing all those sellers fees and things like that. So I think establishing how much you want to make and then really backtracking, okay, how much do we need to get this property for? So yeah, that's kind of what I had to add in there.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, just have a basic idea of like, you don't want to only take appointments that are like, at your MAO for your offer price, but because if they have motivation, they come off their price when you anchor them. If they come off, $20,000, like Gunnar just said, like, 120, 150, and they come down from 250 to 230 or 220, then they probably can come down a little bit more
Mhm.
on the offer call. So you don't want you would definitely want to set that up as well, just like they're saying. So like, what would your advice or recommendation? Also, I think everyone knows that Gunnar's famous. So, um, but what would your advice be if someone's like on the fence about setting an appointment? How do you guys approach that situation? You're on the fence about this one. You're not quite sure. What are you guys doing?
I would say if you're ever on the fence about whether or not to push an appointment, always push it, because the only way you can get deals is by making offers. So if there's no reason to not. If you think that there's a chance that it can turn into a deal, it's 100% worth the appointment. That's kind of a rule of thumb that we use as lead managers in our group. We've established that from the beginning is, if they have pretty solid motivation and maybe the price is kind of right on that cusp where you can't tell if it's too high or not, it's definitely, worth the push.
For sure. I agree. I agree. Another thing on that note too is like if you guys have acquisition reps and lead managers, or if you just have lead managers who are setting you appointments, one of the things we do, and we started out, is having our criteria like a lot wider, and then just rating appointments good or bad based on the criteria, right? So that way you can give feedback and say, hey, this was a bad appointment because of X, Y, and Z. And then the lead manager or whoever's on your team can like get some feedback and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'll take that into account for the next time that comes up. And then you also give positive reinforcement for why it was good, and that's been something that helped us a lot too, as well, getting that dialed in a little bit. And it was another thing too is these guys are doing this every day. They're way better than me or Gino probably would ever be, because they literally do this all day long. This is what they crush. They crush it literally all day. So any questions you have when you're talking to sellers, please drop them down. They're going to be able to give a lot of value here. That's where the value is really going to come from. I can ask all the questions in the world, but they may not be relevant to you guys. So definitely drop them down. So the next question I really have would be more so like, you guys are setting appointments and you got started. Like, what do you feel like was the biggest shift from, because we did this thing in January where we did the performance reviews, and a lot of the things, one of the things we started tracking was the calls to appointment number and seeing how like efficient everyone was. And once we started tracking that, Jock wants the scripts. You want a role play, or do you want that dropped in the bio? But once we started tracking some of these numbers, everyone's efficiency went like substantially up. Like, so what do you guys think was like, for example, like I think Jordan, you were at like 70, and then you were at like 40 then the same month.
Mm-hmm.
Gunnar, you were at like 120, then you ended up at like 45 or something. And Ryan, you were at like, I think you were right around the same. I don't remember exactly what your numbers were. I actually think you had just gotten going when we started it, and you were at like 25 for the first little bit, and then like around 40. Yeah, you were like hella low. So what do you guys think were some of the big things for each of y'all that really pushed you to, get 2 or 3 times as good just in 1 month?
I think for the most part was just being more efficient of where to look in the CRM. Obviously, the new leads are the hottest leads that you want to be, you know, staying on top of at all times. But really, if they're in working 30 days plus, which we got a new technique for it now, not to waste our time, but if they're in working leads and we haven't got in touch with them for over a month, they're probably still not going to pick up the phone when we call them. So I mean, now we have switched over to a smartphone dialer where we can run through those leads a lot faster and not spend time, calling these leads that they're not picking up, time after time. So I think really focusing where in the CRM are your hot leads, and focusing on some of those cold follow-ups that haven't been talked to in a while.
Yeah. What are an example of some of those hot leads that you have in the system? Like, how do you find those?
Yeah, so I kind of had touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but I know within Salesforce Left Main is what we're using. You can go in a search bar and say, all your cold follow-up leads. I think we got over, I don't even know, Chandler, you might know more.
It's like probably like 13,000. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's
I was thinking
a
around
lot.
that. Yeah, so you would go into the CRM, and whether it's working leads or cold follow-ups, you can hit the little search bar up top, up on the top right, and you can search for tire landlords, inherited property, probate. And I mean, this goes back to making sure your lead managers are taking detailed notes once they're on the phone with these sellers. That way you can find them later down the line once you're searching for these those keywords, motivational words.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I like that. So we got a couple questions here. So Kel mentioned the MLS. Do you list most of your wholesale deals? Yes, they all go on the MLS. Kobe, this is a question for Ryan. Okay, let's answer that one in a second. We'll answer that one in a second, Kobe. We just integrated two and decided to move two of our cold callers up to the Smart Find Dialer. Yep, that's really good. That will get you a lot more calls out, and you'll be able to talk to a lot more people. The other thing Jock said is basically calling them follow-up specialists. Yes and no, because if you're like familiar with, and again, this is for everyone, if you're familiar with Tiffany High, the way they call a follow-up specialist, pretty much the script and the call process is just like, hey, are you interested in selling? Oh, okay, you are. Well, then let me live transfer you over to my acquisition manager. And then the acquisition manager goes and does a process call, which is basically qualifying to determine if they deserve an appointment or not. And what we do is all of our lead managers, they do the process call as well. And at the same time, they would do like the follow-up call. So if someone's interested in calling, like you say, hey, you're interested in selling your property, blah, 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 whatever. They say, yes. Okay, great. Then we go through the entire process, qualify them. Then we set them straight up to an appointment. There's no like acquisition manager coming in. So that's the only difference there, Jock, just to be completely transparent. And there's no right or wrong. It's just the way that we do it versus the way that they do it. So we decided to do it that way just because that's what our process was. You guys have anything to add to that? I don't know.
No, I'm good there.
All right. So Kobe asks, what was the downfall of your wholesale business? If you don't mind sharing.
No, I don't mind sharing at all. So to make the long story very, very short, I never imagined myself starting my own business at any point in my life. So I graduated in the class of 2020 and had a couple of job opportunities at commercial real estate firms fall through the cracks. So I went a long time, doing everything I could to find work, and I just wasn't getting any kind of traction anywhere. And that's how I ended up starting my own business. But to answer your question in terms of my downfall, I just got a little bit too greedy. I didn't know I was being greedy at the time, but I got off to a really strong start. So my first month doing wholesaling, effectively, aside from all the time I spent, training myself and getting all my ducks in a row to actually run a wholesaling business, within that first month, I had closed on 2 different deals. And I had a good bit of money in my pocket, and I was like, holy shit, I've got it all figured out. This is awesome. And I was like, okay, well, if I spent, X in marketing that yielded Y in profit, if I spend double the amount of money I did on my marketing, I can expect, 2X the amount of profit. And long story short, that didn't happen. I just got too ahead of myself. I started spending money on things that I shouldn't have, and I just didn't fully understand the concept of delayed gratification. And I didn't take into account that not every month is you're not going to be on fire, every single month, especially when you're just getting started. So yeah, the ultimate answer to that would be I just burned through my capital way too quickly, and I didn't take precautions of, okay, what happens if I spend all this money and I don't get the results that I'm expecting?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just a little naive overall.
I do have a question because this is a super valuable like learning thing for anyone at any level of business. What, like when you said I was just going to spend twice as much on marketing at twice as much, in theory, to a certain point, like you probably could have done that. I don't think that's completely naive to believe. Depending on like how far into the diminishing return cycle you could have gotten, but that's a whole nother complicated topic. But how much like reserves did you had? Like, so like you doubled your marketing budget. Like did you have like 3 months, 1 month, 5, 10, like what was your like reserve period for the marketing spend?
So I really started with, out much money in my pocket. To just be fully transparent, my first job after graduating from a credible university with a degree in finance was I delivered pizzas. So I literally didn't have much money to work with. And those first 2 deals that I got closed within my first month. One was from driving for dollars. One was a list that I pulled from batch leads. It was like a pre-foreclosure list and ended up getting me a deal locked up. So I think I had made around $25,000. And, I just invested in this course that was going to teach me how to scale my business. I started paying virtual assistants. I brought on a new team member that I was paying on the side to, basically while I was teaching him and while he was, the original plan was that he was going to handle the disposition side of our company and I was going to handle acquisitions. So all these things just kind of stacked up on top of one another. Started, buying a much bigger list, and those skip tracing fees can, creep up on you for sure. So basically I was just trying to scale too fast. I was trying to operate a 6-figure a month business that wasn't ready to do those kinds of numbers. So those operating expenses, man, they can really, really, really creep up on you. So my biggest piece of advice to, people just getting started, maybe you've done your first 1 or 2 deals, would be to, don't be afraid to kind of tap the brakes every once in a while and understand that the best things in life come with a lot of time. You can't expect crazy results overnight.
For sure. You just got to make sure you're safe, because it sounds like, I mean, if you just knowing roughly how much all that costs, like it's not cheap. So like if you don't have 5-6 months of runway, it takes, when you spend $1, it usually takes about 3 months to get $1 back. So let's say that you even just mess up one of your opportunities because you're newer, then you might have to wait 6 months to get money, to get paid. So just make sure you're not over leveraging yourself on, if you're spending, $5,000 a month and you got 25 grand, well, you got 5 months. So you got to make something happen within, you got to get a contract signed within, 90 days. Otherwise you might be up a creek without a paddle.
Exactly.
And you don't want to be in that position. So I appreciate you sharing that, Ryan. That's super valuable for anyone, I'm sure, in most scenarios. So
no doubt.
So guys, keep asking your lead management questions. Anything you're having trouble with, just make sure you ask, because these guys are here to do it. So Gunnar, I know Jordan had mentioned his was focused on calling the right leads in the system and focusing your time in the right positions. What were some of the things that you felt like you did that helped work for you to improve?
So back in January when we did the performance plan, I think me and you talked about my call reviews, like listening to calls, and that's a big thing that helped me, learning how to dig deeper into motivation and how to determine if they'd be the best fit for us. And once I did that and I saw where I was at, I was like, okay, I got to get out of this slump. And I think I was at 90 calls to an appointment or 100 or something like that. And then my goal was to listen to as many calls as I could out of work, just so I could be better at work. So I would listen to at least 1 to 2 calls a night. And then I would write some things down. I would implement everything that I wrote down into the next call. And then from there, my number started dropping. So I was at 100, and then I was at 70. And then from 70, I was at 60. And then from 60, I was at 50. And everything was adding up. I was getting contracts. My numbers were dropping. Everything was going good. So listening to my calls helped me a lot in terms of getting better.
Because I think this is an important thing, because one of the questions we asked is what do you think, you put a goal down, and I remember your goal was 70 calls per appointment, and you're at 100, like you said. And I asked the question, what do you think stands between, what's the obstacle keeping you from doing that? And you told me, I know what to do. You just need to do more of it. And I think what you hit on is you just didn't know how good you actually were. And listening to your calls, because it sucks. I used to watch myself wrestle all the time. And like, I'm like, dude, I'm so trash. Like, I can't believe I won that match. Like, but 'cause I knew how good people were, but I like didn't realize how trash I was because of you just don't know until you know. So I'm glad that was able to work for you. But what were some of the things you said? Getting deeper into motivation. What were some of the things you found out through that process that kind of like that you weren't doing, and then you started doing it and you started seeing immediate success?
So basically, back in January, I was kind of just like going through the script, just sounding like a robot. I was just like asking, okay, so what had you thinking about selling? Oh, market's hot. Okay, so what kind of price were you hoping for? And it would just go straight into that. And then so basically, I can't remember if I sat down with you or Jordan, but basically, it might have been Harry too. Can't remember. But it was basically just dig into it, just ask as many questions as you can, try to figure out their deep down true motivation, because anyone could say, oh, the market's hot, because they don't want to talk to you. You're not building that credibility, like Ryan said, and you just sound like a robot on the phone. So just building that conversation with them, and just ultimately getting out that motivation, and seeing what their true reason in wanting to sell is, because they wouldn't be on the phone with you if they're not interested in selling.
Yeah, I like that. So just dropping that guard down and being able to ask questions, you get an actual answer, not just some hitting a wall. Exactly. I like that. So we asked what are our lead manager metrics and why. So if anyone wants to answer that.
Yeah, I can. I'll dive into a little bit. Key metrics, I guess, in like a KPIs and kind of like what we track.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, on a daily basis, we're tracking obviously how many calls our lead managers are making a day, making sure that they're being productive throughout the day. Number two, appointments, which is the main reason we have lead managers is to set up appointments for our home buying specialists, acquisition managers. So those two things we do. A new thing we implemented was calls over 4 minutes. So any call that ends up going over 4 minutes, we review of why did we have it, and why was it not set as an appointment. So did we not disqualify fast enough, or was this maybe a missed opportunity that we missed over that should have been an appointment. So we review those calls and figure out hey, what are some red flags that were thrown out that we should have caught on earlier, or hey, we probably need to set this one up because there's some potential here. So I think those are three main ones that we track. Obviously, new leads claim just for competitiveness, and I think that's really it. I don't know if y'all had anything else y'all wanted to add on that.
Pretty much hit it. Also, we're tracking how many conversations we have. We shoot to be at 25% or better, just to make sure, again, A, that our phone numbers aren't flagged as spam, but B, just to make sure that we're spending time calling the right people, making sure that we're calling people who are interested in selling their property and people who are actually going to pick up the phone.
So the conversation, so you said 25%. So what exactly does that mean? Like 25% of calls are answered, or like what, like, can you clear that up?
Yeah, basically 25% of the people that we called that day picked up the phone, said, yes, I'm so-and-so. And that you had a conversation, no matter if it turned into an appointment or not. Basically picks up the phone, acknowledges they are who we anticipated that they were, and either they were qualified or disqualified.
Yeah, which is a great metric, because a lot of people like look at calls, right, and that's their end all be all. But if you make 100 calls and talk to one person, like, did you really do anything? The answer is probably no, unless you got an appointment from that guy. So what we do is we want to have as many conversations as possible, which means we probably make less calls than a lot of people. Like, we probably, like, you guys would make 60, 70 calls a day, I'd say. It's like somewhere in there. And but you talk to 18, and then you set probably 1.5 appointments a day. So like, you guys, like, just because you make calls doesn't mean you're actually doing anything. So like, what's the actual goal? The goal is appointments. So we're trying to maximize appointments. And how do we do that? Is by talking to people and having quality conversations. So another thing too is, like, I want to really wrap this up in a simple manner. So like, anyone could just take something home, and like, if you want to track your own performance, is you have 3 metrics for any person. So you have what's their capacity. So that would be calls. and you could also say conversations in there, but we'll say calls because that's their actual true capacity. How many calls can they make in a day? That's usually going to revert to how many conversations they're going to have if you manage that right. Then the next part is what's their outcome. So you got capacity and outcome. Outcomes, appointments, right? So how many appointments they get. And then the third one that we have is we track skill, which I would say is would be output divided by, capacity divided by output, which would be calls divided by appointments. So then you'd have your calls per appointment number. And what that number tells you is actually how good are you when you talk to someone, right? So if your calls to appointment's 20 and mine's 80, then you could say that you're 4 times as good of a lead manager as me because you either manage your phone numbers or call the right people more often. You have more quality conversations, or you just know what an appointment is better, right? So you're better than me 4 times. You're 4 times more effective. So if you can get that metric down and keep your capacity up, then your output's going to be just massive, right? So just to wrap it up in a bow tie, that would be my simple advice. But what they said is everything is like to the T perfect, and yeah, I mean that's all the stuff you want to be tracking. So, but that's for any person is what we track. So hopefully that answers that question. Pure Home Solutions. What do you do with leads that are asking for too much or are not interested in an offer anymore in regards to follow-up?
So with that, I mean, we really defining our kind of our process maps of what happens with each lead or kind of what qualifies to go in which bucket. So with those leads that are asking, way too much over market value, really have no interest in selling. Now we're, throwing those leads into a retail bucket where, we'll have, someone on the license side to be able to go through and kind of work those leads. And if, they're just not interested at all, we'll do a cold follow-up, push it out, 30 days. Because, situations change, just because they're not interested in selling this month doesn't mean that, 30 days down the line that they're going to be in a situation where they need us and need our help. So that's kind of what we do, for those cold follow-ups, retail leads.
Yep. And those cold follow-ups do work. We have a bunch of contracts that we've signed or appointments that we've set from leads that are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 days old that are just, time situation changes. So, so hopefully that helps. Also, another thing too is I think for cold follow-up, it's like every 30 days we call them or text them, something like that, right?
The drip is being sent out every 30 days.
Yeah, got it. So something like that. So they're getting some kind of contact every 30 days. All right, Kel, do you switch your outbound numbers to prevent being picked up as spam? So I guess the question would be maximizing that conversation rate. What do you guys do to kind of maximize that?
We've got a phone number for each day of the week, and every single day we're switching. And then obviously, after some time here and there, they'll get flagged as spam, but they usually last a good bit when you're using a different phone number every day.
I have a question on top of this too. So I'm curious, do people ever do you ever call from a different number and it's a problem when people oh, I didn't know you changed your number or anything like that?
Not really, honestly.
No.
You would think that happens more often, but for the most part, no. Unless maybe with a cold follow up and or someone you've been following up with over time, and say one day you call them from this number and the next day you call from that number, but if they don't lock your number in their phone, then I mean for the most part it's pretty fine. I think that's more so acquisitions to make sure that they have those set numbers.
Yeah. I got someone to where they'd save your number in their phone, then you probably set them to an appointment anyways.
Right. For the most part, yeah.
Or they're a probate follow-up. It's hot or something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll even make notes call from phone number 7 or call from phone 1 because I know that they have me in their contacts, so I want my name to show up when I call them.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so you switch numbers every day. You guys call good lists. How do you determine if you're? Oh, what about inbound? Yeah, it's another good question too. Is what about inbound coming from all those different numbers? I think Eric actually just came up with a new solution for this. I don't know if he rolled it out or not.
I think go ahead, Gunnar. You got it.
I think it's if say I called from a number today and then tomorrow I'd switch my number, and they call that number that I called yesterday, it's still gonna ring my phone number.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Eric has somehow, I don't know how he did it, but all our set numbers that we use throughout the week, he's grouped them in where if one of those gets ringed, they're going to whatever number they're getting routed to our Salesforce account. So there's never a time where we're not taking that inbound call to us.
Somehow, like, I don't know how he did it, but he did it somehow. I don't know. So, like, honestly, I wish I had a better answer, but my answer is just like hire people smarter than you so they can figure that stuff out. But use a reader. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something like that. Like, I think in Salesforce, you can attach like multiple numbers to one user, and I think that's how you can do it. If not, you could probably Jimmy rig it where you put it in call rail and like had like a bunch of different scenarios. Like if they call this number, like forward to these, or I don't know. I'm sure you can figure it out. So, but yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that. But what about like let's say you change your phone number every day and you still have a bad connection rate. Like what do you guys do at that point, or conversation rate?
Just check and see if it's spam. If the numbers are spam, you're probably having a bad conversation rate. But most of the time, if the numbers are fine, people are picking up.
Gotcha. Do you guys mostly double dial people or like single dials? Like let's say a new lead comes in. I guess that's probably a better scenario. A new lead comes in. Like what's the process for calling them?
Double dial at least 2 to 3 times. You would be shocked. I remember Antonio, a guy that just got started with us, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I was telling him is double dial every single person that you call, and you will be shocked how many people will answer on the second time. Because I guess it just kind of puts them in that mindset of, oh man, this person called me back to back. This must be important.
Yeah.
So I would say double dial everybody.
I can imagine picking up and hearing Gunnar, "Hey Chandler, you looking to sell your house?" Like, damn, I thought this was like my doctor calling me.
Right, something important.
No, but prime example today was I set this appointment like last week, and he ghosted everyone. I double dialed him yesterday and today, and he called me back, and I'm assuming he didn't know what the number was, but he called me back and told him that asked him if he was interested in selling his property, and he still was interested, so I got it set up again. And prime example of that, double dialed him yesterday and today, and ended up calling me back and got that set up again.
Double dialed off different phone numbers each day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gets deep in here. So we got another question. How many unanswered calls before you put a lead into a drip sequence?
If we don't get a hold of them within the first,
let's say when the new lead comes in.
Yeah. So once the new lead comes in, we'll double dial, triple dial at times. And if they don't pick up, then we'll put it on a drip. And if they do pick up the phone call and they're not interested or whatever, we're going to push them out, and then we're going to put a cold drip on them. That way, we have some form of contact with them within the next 30 days. But they should, all your leads in your CRM should pretty much be on a drip.
Yeah, everyone should be getting the contact no lead in your system should not get either a text or a call for 30 days or longer. So make sure you can do that. And also there's a whole nother theory that I'm racking around in my brain is not only does it get a contact, not only does it get a point of contact, but how many times do we actually connect with that person, right? Do we get a response or an answer? And you could say in your system, you'll never fully maximize it, because there's no way that you're going to be able to talk to every single seller in your system every 30 days. There's just no way. So you pretty much have unlimited, if you have over 5,000 leads that are active in your system, you pretty much have unlimited data. You can call people and get leads out of there, and get appointments out of there all the time. So I know 5,000 is kind of a lot, but yeah. So go here. If a seller says give them time to think and follow up later, how long would you give them time before you are following up?
I always ask. I say, when would it be appropriate for me to follow up with you? And if they say a month, I'm calling them in 2 weeks. If they say call me in 2 months, I'm calling them in 30 days. Basically cutting it in half, because that's just more time that one of our competitors or somebody else can hop in catch them at the right time, and we lose that deal to somebody else.
Yep.
100%.
I'd say also on the front end too, like you'd want to find out like what you did on the front side that makes them want to think. Because if it's something as simple as like they have to move their stuff, you can overcome that objection and still set the appointment. So make sure you don't just let them come in and say, "Oh, I need to think about it." You want to ask basically what do they have to think about. You're not gonna say that as direct as that, but you're gonna want to ask them something like that. Figure out what's the objection, how you can overcome it, and then if you can still set the appointment and give them an offer, right? So don't just cave too easy, but definitely that's the right question to ask them back end. So we got like about 9 or 10 minutes left here. So boys, we've been going for a little bit. Do you guys have any I guess I'm gonna make a couple announcements. And while I do that, you guys think too about anything you want to leave the listeners with. If they're starting lead management, they're doing it, they're trying to hire more people to do it, they're trying to outsource it, wherever they're at, right? Somewhere in that ballpark. But before we all do that, I want to make a couple announcements. So April 14th in Atlanta, we have our meetup. We're going to have Darren Dammy and Doug Hopkins, who they did 13.4 million, I think is what he told me, in Phoenix. And then I think in LA, Doug and them did like 18 million or something crazy. Like they did a lot, right? These guys did a lot of business. But they're going to be in Atlanta, April 14th at 7 p.m. in some place. I'll put the link in my bio. It's also on mine and Genos Stories, where you can go and sign up for the Eventbrite, and you guys can come on out. It's completely free. I definitely urge you guys to come. These guys are crushing the game. They're geniuses. So I would definitely say be there or be square. But the address is in the bio. It's actually in Atlanta, so it's not an hour and a half away like it was last time. It's going to be somewhere near, I think it's West Midtown, if anyone's familiar with that, but I'm not really 100% certain. I got to look back at the address. So I think that's really it on the advertisements or things I got to say. So guys, what do you want to leave the listeners with?
I'll jump in real quick, but I think the most important thing, especially in this business, is make sure that you're tracking everything, from your lead management to your acquisitions to your deals, just from every single aspect. And Chandler is the KPI god, so he loves all of it. So he's set some good systems in place. But I think really tracking how many calls to an appointment your lead managers need to make in order to be successful and push good appointments, and just staying consistent throughout. It's sales is hard. There's you gotta grind through and persevere. Not every day you're going to have a contract. Not every day, you're going to talk to a motivated seller, but you keep pushing forward. You're going to run into that person that needs your help.
Yep, for sure. I like it. What about you?
My
Gunnar?
biggest thing was, honestly, this is it's on topic, but kind of off topic. But what we do in the mornings is we do a morning role play. And back when I first started, I hated it. I hated role playing. I thought it was weird, and it was just super uncomfortable for me. And as I started doing them more and more and push myself to get uncomfortable and push myself to do them, I realized that starting off in the morning with a role play, getting that role play out of the way and overcoming that, throughout the day, I would set 1 to 2 appointments. That's just a conspiracy that I have, that whenever I do a role play, I have a much better day.
We can get you role playing every day now.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's what helped me a lot too.
That's a whole nother topic we didn't even hit on, because role playing is super crucial to role play actual scenarios that go on and be very intentional with your topics that you're role playing, which we can touch on after Ryan leaves his last words. It can be our last word, can be role play. So Ryan, what's your last thing for the listeners?
Man, one of the sayings that stuck with me for a long time now is the money is in the list, but the fortune's in the follow-up. So kind of how Jordan was saying earlier, just because you talk to a lead today and they're not interested and they want above market value, for all in 2 months, their situation might entirely change. So if you put the time, effort, and money into getting that lead, just because they tell you today, no, I'm not interested, or just because they're not a fit today, keep that lead in your CRM, keep following up with them, because again, people's situations change every single day. People's houses get, beat down, deteriorate every single day. So I think one of the cool things about our industry is that every single day, more and more houses, are becoming distressed, need a lot of work. So again, just the follow up is the key for sure. So yeah, just take following up as seriously as you can.
Yep. A lot of that you can automate as well with like text and that kind of stuff. And then you can search through like for those key terms, like what Jordan was talking about a little bit earlier too, like eviction, inheritance, downsize, divorce, whatever, right? All those different words. And yeah, I definitely agree. One of our biggest deals we ever did was from someone who came in. They wanted they wanted market value, like a normal lead. And then they called us like 3 months later, and then we bought it and we made 70K on the deal. And because their situation just changed and we had a lot of rapport with the seller, and she trusted us to get the job done, and she's who we called, or we are who she called. And not to say that someone else could have gotten the deal, but like we said, if we could have followed up with her, maybe we would have gotten on the outbound instead of the inbound. But again, rapport, be the person they're going to call back. Don't let someone else be that guy. So we got a couple questions here before we roll. I know we want to hit role plays, but actually let's just answer these questions. So Kel, last question. Can I get on the buyer's list, assuming your deals are sold? Honestly, our deals are all sold on the MLS. I mean, we sell them at to be honest, anywhere from 90, I would say average, we sell them at market value. So if it's worth 300, we sell it at 300 with the market being so hot. So, I mean, sorry. But I mean, you can be added to our buyers list. You just won't buy anything. Honestly, we were able to pay sellers 85 to 90% on some deals, depending on the size, the price of the home, just because we want to make, we want our goal, our numbers, we want to make 37,000 on the deal, on the property. And, if you buy a $400,000 home, that's 10%. You're basically just a high paid realtor, right? So that's kind of how we're looking at it. So Kobe Jefferson, how often would you follow up with a not interested lead?
So, I mean, go ahead, Gunnar. I'll let you take it away.
I was going to say, I mean, if they're not interested, I mean, you still want to go through the script, ask, what their motivation is to sell, and get that price out of them. I mean, if it's a discounted price, but they just don't have motivation to sell and they're not interested, I'd follow up with them at least once or twice a week. Not twice a week, maybe once a week, just to see if anything changed. And eventually they'll probably come around, or they won't.
To kind of. Yeah. So, I mean, with that, I mean, if they're not interested, I mean, obviously we're pushing out, 30 days. I mean, I would keep that lead in your system for, a year to 2 years, depending on obviously if they're telling you, hey, no, I'm not interested, or very hostile with you, 3 times in a row, for, 90 days, and maybe unqualified and get rid of that, lead. But for the most part, I mean, you're paying money for this lead. So I would try to, keep them in your CRM as long as possible before there's a reason for, them not to be, no longer in your list, do not call list or whatever,
So yeah, if they're giving you one of these, just maybe move them to unqualified. Right. Otherwise, just, keep bugging them. I think someone says I'll call them until they get a restraining order or I get a contract. So I don't think I don't think you quite go that extreme, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it was a good episode. Hopefully you guys got value. Drop any questions you guys got below on the recording. If not, where can they find you guys on Instagram if they ever do want to ask you questions about what we do or what you guys do? Obviously, they're going to give you all the game possible. So,
yep. So my Instagram is just at Gunnar Morgan with 2 N's, and yeah, you can follow me on Instagram.
Is it Morgan with 2 N's at the end or 1 N?
Yeah, 2 N's.
Got it. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm at Ryan1Brennan. Y'all feel free to DM me, hit me up anytime. I'm more than happy to, add value where I can.
What about you, J Doggy?
Kill me with that nickname. You can at 2_Jordan Hayes.
And Jordan Hayes.
Yeah.
That double underscore lifestyle, man. You and Gino are living something special over here.
Come on now.
All right,
But
boys.
yeah, feel free to reach out. It was a good episode for sure.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
See y'all,
Appreciate
boys.
everyone watching. Appreciate y'all for coming. Take it easy. See you next week.
Peace.
Peace.